Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Leah from Lakora Yoga, and today we're talking about 10 tips that hopefully will help you to hold your crow pose. So we're going to jump straight in. So tip number 1 is to strengthen your fingers. Now, when we work on crow pose, we're balancing on our hands. Now, if you stand up a minute and look at your feet, you'll notice just stand on one leg and look at your toes. You'll see them working so much. They kind of like move. I'm going to show you now. If you stand on one foot, you can see the wobbling, you can see the feet tensing and moving just to hold your balance. And that is exactly what happens when we work on our crow pose and our hands and our fingers when we're balancing. So we really want to strengthen these fingers. Now the best way that I know how to do this is a great exercise that I learned from Natanya Stambouli from Yogi Flight School. And she holds your hands out like this and you just flick your fingers. So you're really squeezing them in and then really stretching them wide. Okay, it's not just like flicking it, it's really going for it. And we're gonna do this for just a minute. And just notice where you're feeling this. Try and flick as fast as you can. And you might start noticing that the arms are starting to ache. Do you notice that it's going up your arms? If you do, let me know in the comments below. Now, this exercise is absolutely great because it just shows you that just working on your fingers works the whole lower arm. Okay, so your finger extensors run all the way from your fingertips all the way to your elbow. And this is what helps you to keep stable in your arm balances. Not so much of the wrists. You notice your wrists are staying still here, you're just moving the fingers. And you might already be feeling like your fingers and your arms are cramping up. And just rest your hands on your knees for a second and just notice the tingles. And just notice how much you felt then just in your fingers, not just your wrists. Now the second thing is to work on the flexibility of your wrists. So although your fingers are doing the work, you are on your wrists, and if you ever go over, you want to have some flexibility there just so that it doesn't cause so much pain. So there's a couple of exercises that I like to do to help with this. Now, one of the first ones is just come into all fours, spread your fingers wide, lean forward over your wrists, and then dig into your fingers to push yourself back. So you're leaning forward, dig into your fingers, push yourself back. And just notice here, when you go forward, dig into your fingers, notice how much pressure you can put in your fingers tips here to push yourself backwards. And then turn your wrists out to the side and just take a few circles on your wrists. So you're just rolling around your wrists, just going until there's a slight stretch. And then you can move your fingertips to face inwards. And then try to sit your hips back towards your heels. Come back up, lengthen out the inside of the wrist here. And then turn your wrists back around. Now another thing that you really need to work on is your core muscles. So we're going to come into boat pose. So you sit back on the tailbone. Lean back, lengthen the spine, legs come up, hands come up. Take an inhale here, exhale, open up. Take a couple breaths here, exhale, come back up to boat pose. Inhale, take a couple breaths here, just feel the shakes already, feel that core turning on. Inhale, come back up. Exhale, come back out. Hold it, feel that core working, and come back up. Now there are loads of exercises that you can do for your core. I'm going to put a link up above in case you need more exercises to work on, but doing that one is a great start and it's really going to help to strengthen your core. Because when you're in your crow pose, you need to have a little bit of core strength to pull everything in, to pull your legs towards your bum, to lift yourself up. Eventually when you get enough core control, you can then start taking the pressure off of your arms and off of your knees on the backs of your arms. Tip number 4 is to work on your flexibility, because the two main ways that people get into crow pose are from your forward fold, because you plant your hands and then you get your knees on the back and come forward, or you come in from a squat. So you're already low down, you plant the hands and then come forward. So if you don't have flexibility, it's going to be a lot harder to do this. Now you can put a block underneath your feet to give yourself a bit more height. Personally, I find that a little bit more wobbly. I don't like it. So working on your flexibility is really going to help you to get into that initial stage of crow pose. There's no point learning all of these techniques if you can't get yourself into that position to start working on your crow pose. If you do want help with gaining flexibility in your forward fold, then check out in the description below my 5 days to get closer to your toes challenge. It's a quick 5-day challenge with 10-minute videos to help you gain flexibility in your forward fold. Tip number 5 is to find the correct placement. So when you're doing your crow pose, you've got a lot of things to think about. The first thing was the fingers. Okay, so you're placing your fingers down. Then you want your knees on the backs of your arms. Now, the correct placement here for your arms is going to be keeping your elbows above your wrists. So when you come forward, make sure your elbows are above your wrists before you do anything else. There's no point your elbows being back because you're going to fall backwards. If your elbows are too far forward, you're going to fall forward and you're going to injure yourself. So that leads me on to the next step, which is your gaze. Because once you have the correct placement here, and you've brought your knees to the backs of your arms, your elbows are stacked, your head wants to be in neutral, but you want to use your eyes to look forward. So you're not looking down, because if you look down, you're going to go down. You want to be looking towards the top of your mat. So if you watch here, as I come into the setup of crow, my elbows are stacked, I'm looking back, making sure that they're stacked. Then I put my head neutral, and then I just use my eyes to look towards the top of my mat. And already doing this, I can already feel the weight is gone from my feet, so I could already lift my feet up. Tip number 7 is to take it slow. I see so many people trying to bounce up into crow pose, and using that momentum to bounce you up, it's just going to make you fall, because once you've got your setup, you've got more control and you can take one foot up at a time with all your core engaged, with your arm muscles working. You're just more likely to get it. Whereas if you go and you're just like bouncing yourself forward, it's less controlled. You haven't got enough time to focus on everything you need to focus on. You're not going to be able to do it as good as if you take your time, elbows stacked, head neutral, fingers engaged, core engaged, looking forward, one foot up, and then the other. Okay, slower the better. Tip number 8 is to use props. Now I'm going to show you my favourite way I like to use props, because it's a little bit different to what some yoga teachers teach. Now I like to use a block, and what I like to do with it is place it ahead of me. I use my hands about handprint back. Make sure that there's a gap in between your thumbs, so I like to do that about the size of the block in front of me. Spread your fingers, set yourself up for your crow pose. Elbows stacked, make sure your elbows are stacked, and then place your forehead on the block. And you might even find that already your feet are starting to come up here. So forehead's on the block, one foot up, second foot up, find some balance, hug everything in, and then you can start to lift your head up off of the block. Now doing it this way takes away all the fear from falling, and that is why most people won't do crow pose, is because they keep feeling like they're going to fall forward, and that was definitely what was stopping me. So give that a go, and I hope that that helps you. So tip number 9 is to ask for feedback. If you do go to a regular yoga class, take your crow pose at the end of class and ask your teacher for feedback. Ask her what you're doing wrong. Ask if there's anything that you can change. Now, loads of teachers teach this differently, so keep what they say with a pinch of salt. And if you don't have anybody to ask, then ask me. Come and join our Facebook group, post your video in the group, and I will give you feedback on what I feel is holding you back. And the last tip is to practice, 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 because you need to practice to see improvement. If you're practicing once a week, it's not long enough. Your body is going to not forget the way that you're meant to do it, but your muscles are going to start to retract, and then you're building them back up again. Then they're retracting, then you're building them back up again. You need to keep at it, even if that is just for 5 minutes a day. If you do it for just 5 minutes a day, just make sure that you are doing your finger and wrist warm-ups, because you don't want any injuries here. So make sure that you're doing at least 5 to 10 minutes of wrist and finger warm-ups before working on your crow pose. But little and often is great. That is how you're going to see a difference. So I really cannot wait to see your results. I hope that these tips were valuable. I hope that there was something in there that you've never heard before. If you do want to join our free 5-day challenge to help you get closer to your toes and gain flexibility, then check out the link in the description below and come and join us. If you do want feedback on your crow pose, join the Facebook group, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you next time.